Welcome to the panel, The Power of Cooperation. It is so nice being with all of you here today again, which is so nice. So we have Julio Juarez, we have Philippe Brian with us, we have Mr. Alvino, we have John Dunn and Ciprian Boboy. It's just a pleasure. And we are talking about vaping, compliance, sustainability, everything in the end. And first of all, I'd like to have you introduce yourself just in 2 or 3 sentences. You might want to start?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Julio Ruades. I'm the spokesperson for ANSVAP, the Spanish Vapor Users Association. And also, I'm an old school vapor. I am 14 years vaping and more than 10 years as an advocate.
Right. Thank you very much. Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee Bryan, CEO of Arcus Compliance. We represent many of the largest brands in the world, particularly for European and Middle East regulatory affairs.
Mr. Ao.
大家好，我来自中国深圳，我是 ECCC 秘书长敖伟诺，非常高兴能够参加这个论坛。
Hi everyone. I'm Mr. Ao Wei-nuo. I'm from ECCC, the General Secretary in China, in Shenzhen. Very happy to be invited here.
Hello everybody, my name is Ciprian Boboy. I'm a co-founder and chairman of the Romanian Trade Association and also founder and the board executive of Independent European Vape Alliance.
Good afternoon, my name is John Dunn. I'm the Director General of the UK Vaping Industry Association and also one of the founding members of the Vape Alliance, the Global Vape Alliance, which launched with the 4 key world associations last year.
So you see, we have quite a mixed panel here with all the experts, which is quite nice. And when we were first meeting, we discussed that we have a really reactive, let's say, reactive manner of handling things. But when we had a talk prior to this meeting today, even Chipri and I, we were talking about, okay, maybe we should have a more proactive way of tackling problems within the industry. So, this is a question for all of you. What do you think should we do to adapt? And what are the measurements that we should take to be ahead of the enforcement curve, since everything's just rapidly changing all the time? Chipri, you might have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, as we were talking earlier, the industry over the years was more reactive than proactive. And now it's more important to be proactive because there are some upcoming legislations like the TPD, the Tobacco Excise Directive, the many flavors bans, and it's more important to be proactive because the upcoming regulations will set up the course of the industry for the following, 10 years. So I would say this should be the golden rule. We have to all to work together. We have to be responsible, meaning we have to protect the youth uptake by the way the products are designed, by how we communicate. We have to do all we can to control the access of the youth, to stop the access of the youth. We have to be sustainable. There are no regulations, yes, requirements to do the collections, have recycling schemes, but we have to start working on it because they will come and will be better to get us prepared.
Yeah.
I think the UK is probably a really good example of what happens when you don't listen to people.
Yeah.
And last year, and even when we were in China last year speaking with the ECCC and their delegation, we warned of changing mood in England. We talked about sustainability. We talked about compliance of products, and products not being youth appealing. And because brands did not listen to those warnings, we're now in the case in the UK where we're looking at disposable bans, we're looking at potential flavor restrictions and marketing bans. This is why it's really important for all companies to be involved in their local associations, in their local lobbying groups, because if the industry doesn't come together, if the industry doesn't grow up and become responsible, for whatever reason, we are going to face a very, very difficult next few years. That could be the breaking point between our industry surviving and our industry disappearing. So I think that's a great representation on this panel today that you need to listen to.
Well, what can the UK VII, I'm always trying to get that really right here. So what do you think could the UK VII do to help? Well, of course, you think like they're not listening, so is there any way to do something in order to prevent those changes from happening, or?
It's very difficult with the political situation we have in the UK because the decisions that are being made now are being made for purely political reasons. We have a prime minister and a political party that's in ruin. We're facing a general election. So they're making decisions based on populist ideas and not on facts, data, and science. The best we can do really is to keep reinforcing what those points are. But now our focus is shifting more from the current government to what the next government is going to look like. So it's more than likely going to be a Labour government. Who's going to be in power? What are their views? Because while nothing is set in stone yet in the UK, we have to change the perception of the industry. We have to change that rapidly. But the biggest thing companies can do is become compliant. You know, we talk about responsible recycling. Many of the companies that are involved in the UK are not currently compliant with those regulations, even though they're legally required to do. So getting all of those companies to take the action and actually become compliant is the biggest step we can do right now.
Well, this is not a problem that only appears in the UK, isn't it? Well, of course, with the compliance, we have the flavor bans discussion. It's going wild all over the world, so it's just a crazy thing. So you formed the Global Vape Alliance. So what do you think? You think this might be a bigger change factor when you would be doing something with the Global Alliance than from the UK VIA alone, or you think that would not help at all? Or?
Well, I think my other colleagues would like to comment on that as well, but I think where the Global Vape Alliance comes into its own is the fact that the 4 largest trade associations from around the globe are now officially connected, officially sharing information, sharing strategies. And our hope is, through that combined power, that companies will listen, that they will take action. So that's really our first goal from my perspective. But I think Mr. Ao and Shippy would probably want to comment on that as well.
Please.
好，其实今天的话题我觉得非常有意义。我觉得所有的从业者啊，我们应该停下脚步来听听我们的声音。在这么多年的电子烟的发展的历程上，到了今天，我们的行业何去何从，进入一个很重要的拐点。
I think today's panel is very meaningful, and I think all the companies in this industry should take a pause and listen to what we are going to say. Because for years of development till now, we are facing a turning point for this industry.
因为电子烟高速发展的同时，会迎来监管的这个政策，全球加强监管，这是大势所趋。那么可以为了看到这个 UKVA、IEVA， 我们全球联盟还有 VTA， 我们在一起努力，在行业规范发展方面，我们早就联手做了很多的这个重要的事情。
And because the vaping is developing very fast, that will bring a tightened regulation, not just in one country, but around the whole world. But I'm very happy to see we have an alliance with UKVIA, IEVA, and VTA from the US. We've been working together long time ago to tackle this problem.
那比如说，对于中国来讲 ，ECC 我们压力特别大，因为我们有会员上下游差不多有1000家的会员企业，我们有全球90%的电子烟产品都是来自我们行业协会，因此监管的压力是巨大的。
From my side in China, the pressure is very, very large because we have around 1,000 member companies. So the whole manufacturing is in China. Over 90% of products are made in China. So the pressure from regulation is very high in China.
那么有个重要的里程碑，2022年中国把电子烟合法了。
And 2022 is the milestone as vaping in China was formally regulated by the authority.
那么是可以看到行业出现很大的一个变化，很多非法生产的工厂，非法流通的产品在中国执法是相当严厉的，是很多的非法经营的人员很多都已经在判刑，或者执法是很严厉的。
And after that, the enforcement is very serious. Many illegal productions or manufacturings are being cracked down during these 2 years.
目前这个许可证生产的全国发了有600张牌照，如果没有许可证进行生产电子烟，那是非法，那就要受到很严厉的这个执法。
And now in China, you have to have a license to manufacture in China. And there are now 600 companies who have the license. So if you don't have it and you still manufacture or produce, you'll be put into jail.
那么目前的企业如何应对呢？第一个，成立合规部门，特别是大的头部企业，他们都有专门的合规部门。不仅仅是中国合规，世界各国它都要做好合规。
And there are 2 things the companies need to do. First, for the companies, especially the large companies, to establish the compliance department or the compliance team to make sure their products are compliant not just in China, but in any target countries they are doing business in.
第二个呢，他们从生产方面呢，有 GMP 车间，有 CNS 实验室。从生产环境呢，他们加大了投入，以适应加强监管的这个环境。
And on the other hand, they need to increase their investment on the R&D and the manufacturing quality to make sure they can be compliant in advance.
那么有很多小企业没有这个条件的，我想会逐步的被淘汰。
But for those small companies who cannot afford that, they might be kicked out from the markets very soon.
尽管这个过程呢很残酷，但是我们认为加强监管对于行业是件好事。
It's crucial, but it's a good thing for the industry as a whole.
我们对未来也认为还是有信心的。
And I'm also confident for our future.
同时，所有从业者应该多支持我们工作。你可以看到我们的 John， 还有 IEV 的 Dustin、Tony， 还有我们要么就头发掉光了，要么就白头发，压力是太大了。
And I also hope all the stakeholders and companies to support the work of association. You can see like me and John Don and Dustin or even Tony, we lose our hair or our hair's getting gray. So we have a huge pressure.
所以呢，我们面临巨大的压力，但是呢，我们团结在一起，对未来还是有信心。谢谢。
But whatever, if we can get united, I'm fully confident about our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think the Global Vape Alliance was the biggest milestone that happened for the industry in the last year, the best thing that happened. And I go back to 2019 for the EVO crisis, when that showed us that no matter the problem, no matter where is the problem is happening, it has an impact worldwide. I mean, after the EVO, we had sales dropping rates in Europe like 30%. And
I think so.
Forming the Global Vape Alliance helped us to connect, to bridge all the associations, to start to exchange the problems, to start to exchange the know-how, and to find solutions that are then implemented in the same all over the world in the same time.
Lee?
Yeah, to be honest, I think the best thing that any brands can do is really familiarize themselves with their obligations. You know, going back to 2016 when TPD came in, most brands thought that TPD, once they had a TPD notification, that was it. You know, the pioneers of our industry, their compliance strategy back then was looking at the biggest brand on the market and copying their label. You know, there was no structure to a CLP classification, no screening or anything like that. But what's really important is now we've seen a step change in the education process of the enforcement bodies. When TPD came in and we had our first product-specific regulation for our industry, the enforcement bodies and the competent authorities, they didn't really have a clue what they were doing either, and they needed time to adjust. Well, that time's passed. So if you're a brand owner and you haven't educated yourself on your obligations from a regulatory perspective, you're behind the curve and you're behind the enforcement bodies and the competent authorities. So it's everybody's duty, if you've got a brand and a product on the market, to really understand what your obligations are, and they're far more than just TPD. And if you can't do that, source a regulatory compliance company. There's enough of us out there in the industry that can at least give you some consultancy to advise you on what you need to be looking at. The more diverse this industry is, the more challenge we put up to big tobacco, and I think ultimately that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, that's right. I want to take a step back because you said, of course, and it's quite true, we do have a lot of elections going around right now. And of course, you told me that there are many political reasons to have decisions. First of all, I want to ask a question to Julio, and then afterwards I think you will join in because, Julio, I think it is all about the education. We have seen that the belief that vaping is less harmful than smoking, which was fairly high, reduced over time. So people are now thinking that vaping might not be as less harmful than smoking, which is of course crazy. We know that, but it's about education. So you are a big influencer in the vaping community and an activist, of course. So what do you think? How effective do you think is social media, which is also a political informational platform? How effective is it in educating the public about the benefits of vaping over smoking, especially in light of the regulatory changes?
Well, thanks to social media, we are all here today. And I'm talking also about users, business, social media. That has made grow this sector, and for educational purposes, I think is the most relevant source actually. And there are a lot of attacks. They are trying to delete this part of our advocate, but I think this is more than only vaping. This is more than harm reduction. This is about freedom of speak, and this is our main point to fight right now.
When it comes to educating the people, because of course, if you want to win an election, you have to have the people behind you. So we have to educate the people to believe that vaping is less harmful than smoking. So John, what about collaborations with social media activists, influencers, whatsoever? What do you think of it? Do you use it as UKVIA, or what are your thoughts about that?
We do, but it's becoming increasingly more difficult to use social media, especially around the rules and regulations with the TPD. And this is one of the things that we're seeing a big step change now in the UK. The rules around the use of social media are being really, really enforced now. So it's basically muzzling the industry from talking. Now, as an association, we have a little bit more leverage and leeway in what we can say, because what we say is purely educational and it's not pushing a brand or anything like that. But the problem with social media, it's been a double-edged sword for our industry, because while there's good content out there that is educational and pushing the right message, we have brands that have been using it in an inappropriate way, using youth appealing images and things like that, which is really giving the industry a bad name.
Yeah.
The other thing we must remember is the vast majority of people in all of our countries don't smoke, don't vape, and don't care, right? So it's very easy for the media to influence those people who vote in a negative way. Whereas those people who are passionate about our industry are in the minority of that noise out there. And this is the challenge, I think, as an industry we all face. But what we've got to do as companies is understand that we are an adult, age-gated product. So stop marketing to 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds,
Yeah.
you know, on TikTok and things like that.
Yeah.
We need to be an adult here. And this is where I think we've gone wrong and it's causing us problems.
Yeah. Well, how has the market changed when it comes to marketing to youth people? Maybe Chipri, you can join. Because of course we have seen all of those things, haven't we? Like past year we were talking about vapings in the form of pens and everything. So you could see it in your school, write something, and wave through your pen, which was just crazy.
Well, the biggest threat that the industry is facing is a flavor ban. I think we all
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
The reasons or the arguments behind the already enforced flavor bans from different European countries are the youth uptake and the main argument. And here, of course, they blame the flavors, but at the end of the day, if you look more closely to the situation, it's more about the way the product is marketed, the way the product looks, the visuals, the text, the naming of, I don't know, cupcakes and so on. So, although there's no regulation to stop us to do that, we have to be responsible. We have to behave as a responsible brand. We have to communicate with the adult smoker. We have to make sure we control the youth access and the youth appealing, of course.
When it comes to compliance, Lee, Mr. Au just said that, of course, we have to maybe change the way the products are manufactured. When it comes to marketing, of course, you want to have a product that is appealing. So you want a product that, of course, it tastes nice. It is, let's say, smart in usage. So it's maybe small, it fits in your pocket, you can maybe put it somewhere, I don't know. But maybe we have to do some changes. So what do you think could be some changes on the product without, so we will comply with all the regulations that we have without losing the quality, let's say not just the quality of the product, but just for the quality of the marketing as well?
That's a good question. I think there's probably many areas that could be considered, but it has to start with the liquid and the quality of the liquid. Obviously, we're in a situation now where we've almost gone full circle in terms of when the industry first started, liquids were produced in China, then Europe, the States, and now that we've gone back to smaller devices, disposable devices, we're seeing that most of the liquids are being produced in China again. Now, I think some of the issues with that is the transparency of the quality and the transparency of what chemicals are going into them. You know, we have that conversation with quite a few of our own clients, that a lot of these guys don't even know what is in their formulations.
Yeah.
You know, if ultimately you're the one that's going to get sued or potentially worse, go to jail if your product kills somebody, or you know, in 10, 20 years' time, we'll start seeing the type of lawsuits that we're seeing against tobacco companies. So it's really important that as a brand owner, you have full transparency on your recipes. And you know, you've got to really start pressing a lot of the Chinese flavor houses for that information, but also do your own due diligence to ensure that, you know, use a third-party flavor house and batch test, you know, run it through a GCMS, take it to that level, so that if somebody knocks on your door from an enforcement body, you can not only present them that you've got a declaration of conformity from your supplier, but you've also done batch testing periodically and run it through GCMS with third-party labs in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing everything you possibly can to build a really strong and robust due diligence process. So I would say that the making sure that the quality of the e-liquid and understanding everything that's in it for you as a brand owner is the number one thing to look at.
Well, that would take a big argument away from other critics, wouldn't it? Like,
Yeah.
when we could make sure that the liquids are safe.
Well, I think the other part that we need to look at is the product design itself. You know, every time I go on television with the anti-vaping crowd, they always throw these products in front of me with unicorns and cartoon characters. We're an adult industry. Why do we need to put children's cartoons on these devices? You know, is a consumer really buying a product because it's fluorescent pink or it's got flashing lights? No, adults don't buy it for that reason, children do.
Yeah.
And this is where our industry is killing itself, which is really annoying. Because, you know, when people come to me and brands come to me and bitch and say, John, why is the government taking this action? Why are they banning the products? I said, because it's action that you took. It's products that you made. You've caused this issue, nobody else. And that's what's so annoying for the people that are on this bench. Because we're trying to save the industry, and our own industry, in a way, is trying to kill itself.
Yeah, that's true. But it's a double-crossed sword, isn't it? Because first of all, we want to have those products on the market, not we, of course. But there are people who want that, and then, of course, it's a business opportunity for the manufacturers as well.
Yeah, but what people want is they want a product that tastes good, that delivers, and that's efficient.
Yes.
You can make all of a product that does all of that without the other issues.
Of course, with a standardized design, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Something smart, usable, rechargeable, maybe with yeah, of course, you can have that.
And my prediction for the next 2-3 years is we're going to have standard packaging. We're going to have no more colors. We're going to have restrictions on what you can call your flavor. 100% that's coming in. So we should be preparing for that now.
So Mr. Au, when it comes to, well, we did have to talk about standardization in product design when it comes to vaping. When we are thinking of that, is it really that big of a deal to have one standardized product for all the manufacturers? Do you think that would make it, well, less easy to earn money with it? Because of course the competition would not be as good because you cannot diversify with each other, or do you think that this might be okay as well for the Chinese manufacturers? Sorry.
我觉得这个问题问得非常好。这一次在这个西班牙展会，我看到一个很好的一个变化，很多就是有一些企业出了这个可拆卸电池的这些产品出现了，这是一个积极的信号。
I think this is a really good question. I saw a product in this show that the battery can be dismantled very easily by hand. I think that's a very good signal for the market.
至于这个标准接口的事情，要去规范它有一定的难度。这个回到我们几年前在中国换弹式的这个通配问题，当时是有争议的。
But actually, for the standardization, for design or anything, it could be quite difficult. Actually, many years ago in China, in terms of the standardized design for port system, it triggered a lot of controversy.
但是我想呢，就是如果随着行业不断的发展，很多优秀的企业，它一定会率先推出符合法律法规、符合行业可持续发展的产品的。比如说，今天看到了有一些可拆卸的、可换电池、可拆出来用手工可以拆出来的产品，这就是行业的一个进步。
But I believe as the industry is keeping forward, some companies, they will move ahead. They will be in advance to promote some products that is good for the markets in terms of sustainability, like the example I gave. So these are the good examples that other companies should follow.
因为电子烟是个很年轻的产业，无论是监管还是市场的流行，它有很多的完善的空间。监管也好，市场也好，它有很多要完善这个过程。我想呢，这个朝标准化发展呢是个方向。
Anyway, this industry is still very young, so in terms of the market regulation, it still have many spaces to improve. It takes time, but I think standardization is our direction.
但是要协调企业和生产企业各个工厂之间的这个统一协调性，还需要我们去做工作，因为我们 ECCC 的成员承担了全球90%的产能。
But if we want all the manufacturers to cooperate, to be on the same page, ECCC and the big associations must step forward. They need us coordination to really do that because 90% of the products are made in China.
这个工作的难度是在于用头部企业带头，如果前5 或者前10的企业愿意支持我们工作，把设计做完标准的端口，我想这是一个很有挑战而且很有意义的工作，我们愿意去尝试。
So I think the very important point is whether the leading companies, for example, the top 5 or top 10, would like to take the lead to have standardized design procedures to go on. If they would like to do this, it will be much easier. So it's difficult, but very meaningful. Thank you.
Someone wants to join in? Of course, it's all about the cooperation. Yeah. So I think the Global Vape Alliance, of course, with the ECCC, is able to make some changes because if you might be the one who are heading down the road first, even in front of the regulations. Or what do you think, Chipri?
As Mr. Rao was saying, we're talking about standards. So one of the major issue we have to be proactive about it is the sustainability, because the future is sustainable. That should be the strategy. That is the long-term strategy. So we run some at AEVA, we run some recycling assessment, and of course one of the problem is the cost of recycling that can be solved by the way the products are built in. And then the standards come. It's also important what material you use, for example, and we have plenty of examples around of companies, EC companies that produce disposables, for example, from recycled material. So all the solutions are out there. Just is needed for exactly what's the purpose of the Global Vape Alliance, to bridge the communications, to bridge the knowledge, to bridge the connection between the manufacturers, the retailers, the wholesalers.
I think also one of the things that's really helped with the Global Vape Alliance is the fact that if you're going to make global change, the best place to start with that is the source of the products, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where Mr. Ao and the ECCC have been really fundamental in making that happen. Next week I'm traveling to Shenzhen to spend the week there with ECCC and with many of the CEOs of these companies. Chipri is following the week after. And our goal is to meet in person at least 3-4 times a year, so that as a collective group, we can discuss these big issues with the decision makers in the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah.
Because that's how we're going to make change.
Yeah.
It's not going to be beating the drum in our own countries.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult for international companies to understand what's going on in 70, 80 different countries.
Yeah.
And this is why we see companies failing with compliance, because it is difficult to control centrally from China.
Yeah.
And having compliance partners in each of the regions has proven to be a successful tool. But it's taken a long time to get there. But I think the work that Mr. Ao and the ECCC is doing is critical to making that change happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Global Vape Alliance, there's an opportunity there to create essentially a hive mind, shared experience. This is something that we've done at Arcus with our clients. So, for example, when one client experiences a problem in a certain EU member state, we can proactively make sure that all of our other clients in the portfolio are anything that's going to potentially impact them as well will be changed. So the opportunity to almost mirror that with the Global Vape Alliance and sharing data, we've all got really good connections, we've all got good relationships with enforcement bodies, with competent authorities, to be able to share that and say, by the way, this is coming down the pipe with everybody else in the Global Vape Alliance, then all of that information then will actually cascade down to the members and make for a better industry.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We do have 16 minutes left. Well, we did have a lot of talks in the last day and today too about, of course, environmental things, sustainability, recyclability. We had design standard talks. We were talking about taxation, flavor bans. So it really was like, let's say, a flower bouquet of talking themes. And since the Global Alliance, of course, wants to be more proactive, I think it'll be just great to have some next step action planning things going around. So I'd like to hear from each of you what would be your next step to contribute to the upcoming challenges. Of course, we heard a lot, of course, today. So, Julio, maybe you can start. So, what do you think? Like when we're thinking of strategic directives for the future, based on our discussion, what we happened today, the discussions that we had yesterday, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the strategic outlines? What is your contribution to the upcoming challenges?
Please, can you repeat me the question, please?
It was the last question that I sent you.
Question 7.
Yeah. Sorry. Pregunta 6.
I only have half.
Ah, sí, pero I sent you the question here. Maybe you can start, yeah.
Absolutely. From my perspective, I've actually written a book on it. I wrote a book called Core Compliance, and it was designed essentially to help the founders, the pioneers of our industry, with the very small mom and pop operators that created liquid. Now, they couldn't afford to engage a high-end compliance company. So what I lost my dad and paternal grandparents to smoking-related illnesses. So I became somewhat of a crusader for the harm reduction potential of vape. So what I decided to do was to take all of the knowledge that we had from servicing our clients and put it down into a book so that the smaller brand owners could just get it for £15, $15, whatever it was, and actually start building a compliance strategy of their own. And it focuses on 6 core areas. So that, if that was the only takeaway that I could give to everybody, to every brand owner that needed to sort of create somewhat of or strengthen their compliance strategy, is just focus on those 6 areas. Start thinking, right, what do I need to do to protect my brand going forward? Because it's not a nice to have, it's an absolute now. Because the enforcement bodies are educated, the retailers are educated, they're now asking for SDS and further documentation before they're prepared to take a product and put it on their shelves. So just by focusing on educating yourself as a brand owner to ensure that you know what the fundamentals are, that's by far the best thing that you can do to ensure that you're going to be around in 5 years' time.
Julio.
Okay. I think the industry should look to advocates, because a lot of times we feel alone, and because a lot of times we are the shield between the governments, the legislations, and the industry. And I insist, we have a very little support. And I'm not talking about the stores. They are the first ones to help us. I'm talking about the industry, the manufacturers. Many times it seems that they don't care about this, and without us, they wouldn't exist.
Yeah, I think the 2 areas that I know our association and also the others are really focused on at the moment are 2 areas. The first one is youth access to our products.
Yeah.
That's a simple one for the industry to fix. The second thing is the environmental impact of our products. And that really goes back to source in the research and development, the manufacturing process, the materials that are being used. Brands have to think about how their product are going to be finally recycled at the end of life, because that's what governments are focused on.
Yeah.
So if we're not focused on it, they're going to put restrictions in that will stop our products being sold. It's as simple as that. I know there's taxation and flavor bans and all of those, but taxation shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. Reasonable taxation does 2 things. One, it standardizes the industry and it cuts down on illicit products, but it also gives the government less excuse to ban things, right? If the revenue ministers are making money off our products, they're not going to ban them, right? Yeah. So we should see that not as a bad thing. And it was interesting when I went to IEVA's annual meeting, and you had all of the different associations from around Europe, and each one was giving their take on what's happening in the countries. Those countries that had taxes and some restrictions ended their presentations with, "But business is good."
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, "What?"
Yeah.
this is not what I thought I would hear.
Yeah.
But it just means that the industry cleans up a little. But what we've got to be really careful of is restrictions that go over and above what they need to. You know, like for instance, in the UK, we're looking at a potential tax regime that penalizes higher nicotine strengths. Now, while it sounds like a good idea, yes, let's encourage people to use less strong nicotine. What it has is it has the adverse effect on consumers coming in. They will choose a product not based on the nicotine strength they need to be successful,
Yeah.
but on the nicotine strength that's cheapest.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they will fail and they will go back to smoking.
Yeah.
So this is why governments have to really understand the effects of the action that they're taking
Yeah.
on the consumers.
Yeah.
Because ultimately what they don't want is people going back to smoking.
True. So this is even an imperative for everyone here, yeah? Because we do have a lot of B2B players around here who are in charge of exactly those thoughts they have to make up for themselves. So if you are designing your products and you're thinking of, okay, I want to design a new product or I want to change something, you have to keep that in mind as well. Well, Chippy.
I will take over from John's discussion on the taxation because I had several talks here in Paris in the last day. So, as John said, taxation, proper taxation that reflects the harmfulness of the product, it's welcome. I mean, at the end of the day, let's face it, the health agencies, they're not really our friends. They're not really, in many countries, they're not open to sit down and have a talk. And while having a taxation, having the state to collect, then you create new allies like the finance minister, the economy minister, and on key points, those can be helpful. More is not about having a low taxation; it's about having a much lower taxation than tobacco products.
Yeah.
And looking around at the tobacco prices all over the world are skyrocketing. We have examples of 12 pounds in UK, if I'm not wrong. And go back to my mantra, let's say, what the most aspects of the industry is right now. Getting back to being responsible. Again, in most of countries, you don't have restriction when it comes to how to name your flavor, what visual you can put on it. So you're free to use, I don't know, Mickey Mouse but you don't do that if you're responsible.
Yeah.
You use the proper adult smoker communication. You have to be sustainable, of course. I mean, these days, or you're sustainable or you die, which means you have a long-term strategy, you start to be sustainable, you start to look in solutions, you start to join associations, umbrella associations like ours, like ECCC, like UKVIA, so that you all work together to the future of the industry. You know, at the end of the day, we're not compared to the tobacco companies. There are 4 or 5 major companies. We are thousands of small and medium enterprises, and our leverage here is to get together, to act together, and to coordinate our work.
Yeah. Mr. Ao.
我非常认同 UKVA John 和这个 AEVCP 的观点，就是我们电子烟行业，我们专委会 ECCC， 其实我有3大核心的工作任务。
I much agree with what John and Cipri said. Actually, for ECCC, we have 3 major tasks.
第一大工作核心重点就是我们所有的会员企业要做好合规，而且有很硬性的规定和要求，引导我们所有的会员企业遵守，不仅仅是中国，还有出口到世界各国的目的地国家，提供合法合规的产品，这是我们第一个工作要点。
The first and the most important is always compliance. So we will educate our vapor companies to be compliant, not just in China, but in every country they are doing business in. That's the most important thing, the top priority.
第二项工作要点呢，就是所有的企业注重质量安全，在生产的同时，要注重 ESG 可持续发展以及这个创新研发，从研发投入方面来推动行业的进步。 就是鼓励我们的会员企业投入研发创新，推动这可持续的发展，这是我第二点的工作要点。
And second, so we need to go ahead of the time, ahead of the compliance and the regulations in place, which means the quality and safety of the products. So we will encourage our member companies to increase the investment in terms of innovation, R&D, and ESG.
第三呢，就是开展国际化的全球，就比如说全球联盟这种国际化的合作。
And the third is global cooperation, like Global Vape Alliance.
我也很乐意看到这个 John 和 IEVA 和我们一起，在我们的 ECCC， 我们每一周都有培训的会议，是关于合规的。
And every week we will hold the workshop or campaign to educate our member companies to be compliant, working with IEVA, UKVIA very soon this month and next month.
另外呢，现在我们的中国电子烟的主管部门、烟草部门在为期4个月的专项行动，已经在加强执法，已经在这个4个月的过程中刚刚开始了。
Now is also a very critical moment for China because the tobacco authority is cracking down on those illegal products. A very serious enforcement going on for 4 months.
那么接下来我们全球联盟，我们几个协会会加强合作，在合规方面呢，会成为我们很务实、很高效的去推的一项重要工作。
So the global cooperation is a must for ECCC in terms of the future work.
OK，
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one or 2 points. I think one of the things that I've learned from the Global Vape Alliance over the last 2 or 3 years is really understanding that what happens in one country really affects what happens in others.
Yeah.
And you get companies that go, yes, but I'm compliant in this country.
Yeah.
But then when you look at what they do in other countries, they're not compliant there.
Yeah.
And if they think it doesn't reflect badly on them, they're mistaken. And I think this is where what's happening in the UK at the moment is so critical. Because if the UK falls,
Yeah. The rest
of the countries
Yeah.
will fall too.
Yeah.
And this is why we really need to get together. We really need to be focusing on those markets that are really negative right now.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the critical turning point for our industry.
Yeah, I think so too. So this is actually another great point, and Chippy, you said it also, like for all of us around here too, for all the B2B players here, to really, well, it would be the easiest way to join an association and just go with them. So what are they talking about? So what are the compliance things that they are talking about, and go along with that, because then of course it would be just easier than keeping on to fight by themselves, because of course nobody can do it alone, because we need to have strong players on the market and in politics to get the arguments right there.
Yeah, of course, being part of a trade association. I mean, let's take it like this: the purpose of the trade association is to represent a sector in front of the policymakers.
Yeah.
So, no matter if you're here and you're planning you have a long-term strategy, you're planning to be there after the TPD. If you're a player and you plan to exist after the TPD, being in association, I think is mandatory, because at the end of the day, that gives you access to information, that gives you networking also. We can exchange with people business owners from other countries. At the end of the day, like in the case of IEVA, for example, we are the only pan-European association independent from tobacco that represent the sector in front of the EU institutions. So at the end of the day, it's us protecting the industry or nobody.
Yeah. Well, we are at the end of our time, sadly, but you are here still, so if you wanted to have a talk with them, want to ask some questions, want to join an association, of course, you're free to go all the time. Thank you very much for joining the panel, and see you around.
Thank you.